My parents demanded that I invite my sister to my wedding, even though she had previously slept with my ex. They claimed it would be a good opportunity to rebuild our bond, and threatened not to attend if I refused. Let me tell you how this whole mess unfolded. I'm Sarah, a 27-year-old nurse, and I recently got married. You'd think getting married would be one of the happiest moments of my life, right? Well, it should have been. But my family had other plans. What was meant to be a beautiful celebration turned into an absolute circus. Instead of enjoying my special day, I found myself constantly dodging drama, watching my back at every turn. My family seemed determined to ruin everything, and honestly, they came pretty close. But I'm not someone who just sits back and takes it, especially not after years of dealing with difficult patients and high-pressure situations in the ER. So I decided to give them a taste of their own medicine, and now they're painting me as the villain. I need some outside perspective here, so let me walk you through exactly what happened. Let me give you some background. I'm the youngest in a family of 5. First, there's my mom, Barbara. She's the textbook definition of an appearance-obsessed suburban mom, always following some new fad diet and subtly, or not so subtly, judging everyone else's life choices. Then there's my dad, Richard, who's completely obsessed with money and status. If it doesn't involve stocks, investments, or the word profit, he couldn't care less. Now about my older sister, Jessica. To put it mildly, she's a nightmare. We've never had a good relationship. She's always been the golden child while I was just there. Growing up, she had this special talent for making my life miserable. She'd constantly find ways to humiliate me in front of others. And somehow she always managed to twist things around to make me look like the bad guy. It's safe to say our relationship is beyond repair. The only person in the family I actually connect with is my grandma Margaret. She's this incredibly sweet, down-to-earth woman who actually made me feel valued. She's the kind of person who remembers every birthday, every achievement, and always has time to listen. I also used to be close to my Aunt Emily. She was the cool, fun adult in my life, and we spent a lot of time together. But when I was around 13, she suddenly disappeared from our lives. I never really understood why back then, and it happened right before I got shipped off to nursing school. So whatever connection I had with her and the rest of my family just faded away. Growing up, let me tell you how I ended up at nursing school. The short version is that it's all thanks to Jessica. She absolutely hated that mom and dad had a second child. She wanted all the attention for herself, so she made it her life's mission to make my existence a living hell. I became her favorite scapegoat for everything. Jessica had this habit of breaking things around the house: mom's antique vases, dad's precious golf trophies, and somehow I'd always get blamed. She'd put on this innocent act, complete with perfectly timed tears, and spin these elaborate stories about how I did it. Once she even convinced them I'd stolen money from Dad's wallet, which was ridiculous because I didn't even know where he kept it. But of course, they believed her without question. When I was 12, things really exploded. One time, she accidentally spilled red wine all over Mom's pristine white designer couch and immediately blamed me, claiming I was being careless. Another time, she deliberately shredded Dad's important investment papers and swore she saw me doing it out of boredom. Every single time, they took her word over mine. The final straw came when she broke Grandma Margaret's crystal bowl, a precious family heirloom that had been passed down for generations. Jessica swore up and down that I was horsing around and knocked it over. Mom and Dad were absolutely furious. Instead of listening to my side of the story, they decided I was too much trouble and shipped me off to nursing school. I still remember packing my bags, trying not to cry as I caught Jessica smirking from her doorway. School years. My parents were essentially ghosts throughout my school years. They never showed up for any events or achievements. I remember this huge practical nursing exam I had. It was a massive deal, and I'd studied for weeks. I scanned the audience, hoping to see them there, but nope, just a sea of other parents supporting their kids. Another time, I won first place in a medical science fair project about emergency response procedures, and they couldn't even be bothered to call and congratulate me. After a while, their absence stopped hurting. It became my new normal, and honestly, it probably helped prepare me for the emotional resilience I'd need in the ER. Working night shifts in the emergency room taught me how to handle chaos and stay calm under pressure. But nothing in my medical training could have prepared me for dealing with Jessica when I moved back home after graduation. Living with her was like walking into a war zone. She still had this talent for making everything about her and turning the smallest things into full-blown conflicts. College life. Jessica was the queen bee of our local college scene. Everyone knew her name. She'd lived in the area her whole life and had built up this perfect image. Meanwhile, I was the new nurse trying to keep a low profile while juggling clinical rotations. But Jessica couldn't stand the thought of anyone comparing us, especially since I was starting to build my own reputation in the medical community. She made it her personal mission to make my life unbearable. She started with these subtle digs whenever we were around her marketing firm friends. Once she casually mentioned in front of everyone that I was just a nurse and how I couldn't handle real college, completely ignoring the fact that nursing school is incredibly demanding. During hospital fundraising events, she'd throw these elaborate parties and deliberately exclude me, making sure everyone knew I wasn't welcome in her social circle. The breaking point came during a hospital charity gala. I caught her with my then boyfriend in one of the on-call rooms, and she didn't even try to hide it. She just stood there with this smug look on her face, like she was proving she could take anything she wanted from me, including my boyfriend. The worst part, when I told Mom about it, hoping for just a shred of support or understanding, she brushed it off like it was nothing. "You're both adults," she said. "Stop being so dramatic about everything." New beginnings. That was it for me. I applied for a position at a different hospital in another city and got accepted into their emergency department. I packed up my scrubs and stethoscope and started fresh, cutting ties with most of my family. I needed money for additional certifications and emergency medicine courses, and my family agreed to help, though I later found out it was actually Grandma Margaret who paid for everything, not Mom and Dad. While building my new life in the dealing with everything from car accidents to cardiac arrests, I met someone who changed everything. Michael, a pediatric surgeon, walked into my life during a particularly chaotic night shift. We connected instantly. He understood the demands of medical life and treated me with a respect I'd never experienced in my family. When we got engaged, it felt like everything was finally falling into place. Wedding planning. Telling my family about the engagement was interesting. I was both excited and anxious about sharing the news. After everything I'd been through, I wanted them to see that I was thriving, that I'd built a successful career, and found happiness. Their reaction? A lukewarm, "Oh, that's nice," as if I just told them about a routine patient checkup rather than my engagement. But honestly, I'd stopped expecting enthusiasm from them years ago. Wedding preparations. Mom suggested I have the wedding back in our hometown, but I quickly shut that down. I'd built a life here near the hospital, where my colleagues and Michael's family had become my support system. The wedding planning itself was revealing. While my parents were conspicuously absent, my future mother-in-law, Linda, and sister-in-law, Amy, jumped in with incredible enthusiasm. They helped with everything from finding a venue that could accommodate my irregular schedule to coordinating with vendors. For the first time, I felt what genuine family support was like. Then came the invitations drama. After they went out, I got a call from Mom. "Sarah, honey, there seems to be a mistake with the invitations. Jessica's name isn't on them," she said casually, as if mentioning a typo. Before I could explain, she brushed it off, saying she'd already told Jessica about the wedding and assured her they'd all be attending. "Mom, stop," I cut in, my voice firm, the same tone I use when dealing with difficult patients' families in the ER. "It wasn't a mistake. I deliberately didn't invite Jessica. I don't want her at my wedding." But Mom dismissed me like I was an overreacting teenager, not a professional adult who deals with life and death situations daily. "Don't be ridiculous, Sarah. It was just a minor oversight," she said. That's when I brought up the hospital gala incident with my ex. Mom's response? She exploded. "You're being completely unreasonable, holding on to old grudges. This is a perfect opportunity to rebuild family bonds." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Family bonds? I laughed bitterly. When have we ever had those? When you sent me away? Or when you ignored my nursing school graduation? Mom's counter was immediate and harsh. If Jessica wasn't invited, none of them would come. The decision. After ending that call, I sat in the hospital break room, still in my scrubs from a long shift, thinking about everything. Years of emergency medicine had taught me to trust my instincts, and right now they were screaming that I needed to take control of this situation. If my family was going to play games, I could play too. That's when I thought of Aunt Emily, someone else who'd been pushed out of the family by their manipulation. The more I thought about it, the more pieces fell into place. Aunt Emily had always been Dad's least favorite sister, despite being incredibly kind to both Jessica and me. She disappeared from our lives after some huge family drama, and over the years, I'd pieced together that Dad had systematically turned Grandma against her, while Mom had contributed to the destruction of her marriage. Reconnecting. Finding Aunt Emily wasn't easy. My initial messages went unanswered. Finally, I decided to do what I do best as an ER nurse, take direct action. I traced her to a local address, surprisingly close to my hospital. When I knocked on her door one evening after my shift, her initial reception was as cold as the surgical floor's air conditioning. "Emily," I said, still in my scrubs, "I know it's been years, but I need to talk to you." As I explained everything, the years of manipulation, Jessica's behavior, my parents' continuous gaslighting, her expression softened. Soon we were sitting in her living room with tea, and she began sharing her own story. The truth was devastating. Emily had been dating a doctor whom Grandma Margaret initially disapproved of. Mom and Dad seized this opportunity, feeding Grandma lies about how Emily planned to elope and abandon the family. They fabricated an ultimatum from Grandma: break up with the boyfriend or be disowned. Emily was heartbroken and tried to explain. But by then, my parents had poisoned Grandma's mind with stories about Emily choosing the boyfriend over family. Things spiraled quickly. When Grandma had a minor health scare and was hospitalized, Dad blocked Emily from visiting, claiming Grandma didn't want to see her. He made Emily believe she'd been disowned, while convincing Grandma that Emily had abandoned her. Mom and Dad didn't stop there. They spread rumors about Emily stealing from Grandma's accounts for her boyfriend's medical practice. It was all lies, carefully crafted to isolate Emily from the family. The invitation. After hearing Emily's story, I knew what I had to do. "Emily," I said, holding her hands, "I want you at my wedding. Not just as a guest, but as someone who understands what this family is capable of." She hesitated, understandably worried about facing everyone again, but something in my determination seemed to resonate with her. "You know they'll try to cause trouble," she warned, her voice carrying years of hurt. I smiled grimly, thinking of all the chaos I'd handled in the Let them try, I replied. I deal with crisis situations for a living. It wasn't just about having Emily there. It was about finally standing up to the toxic patterns that had controlled our family for years. Just like how I advocate for my patients' well-being, it was time to advocate for my own happiness. The wedding day. The wedding day started with the chaos I'd expected. Jessica arrived with Mom, both of them immediately picking apart every detail of the venue, from the flower arrangements to the table settings. Mom was fawning over Jessica until she spotted Emily. The look on her face was like someone who'd just walked into a code blue situation, pure shock followed by barely contained rage. Sarah, Mom stormed over, her designer dress rustling dramatically. How dare you invite her? Her voice was rising, drawing attention from nearby guests. I met her gaze steadily, channeling the calm I use during emergency procedures. We're rebuilding family bonds, remember, Mom? Isn't that what you wanted? Mom was livid, but before she could make a scene, Amy, my new sister-in-law, smoothly intervened. She'd been briefed on the situation and handled it with the precision of a skilled surgeon, ensuring the ceremony could proceed without disruption. Despite the palpable tension, Michael and I exchanged our vows. Walking down the aisle, I could feel my family's disapproving stares, but for once, I didn't care. I was choosing my own path, just like I had when I chose emergency medicine. Reception drama. The reception was when everything truly unraveled. Emily had taken Grandma Margaret aside for a private conversation, and my parents were practically trying to break down the door to interrupt them. Meanwhile, Jessica was holding court near the dessert table, loudly criticizing everything from the catering to the decorations. I mean, hospital cafeteria food is probably better than this, she sneered to anyone who would listen. Amy, bless her, kept deflecting with perfect poise. Actually, everyone's been raving about the food. Although I suppose some people just can't help being negative at happy occasions. Her subtle jabs were delivered with surgical precision. I was exhausted, feeling like I'd just pulled a double shift in the When I tried to get my parents to give Emily and Grandma space, they turned on me. "You're destroying this family," Dad shouted, his face red with anger. That's when Michael and his mother Linda stepped in, threatening to have them removed if they couldn't behave. Dad completely lost control. "You've always been the problem child," he bellowed across the reception hall. "A disappointment since the day you were born." The words stung like antiseptic on an open wound. Michael immediately signaled security, who escorted my parents out. Through it all, I maintained my professional composure. Years of dealing with crisis situations in the had taught me how to keep my emotions in check, at least outwardly. Social media aftermath. After the reception, I finally had a moment to check my phone in the break room where we'd set up a quiet area. My screen was flooded with notifications. That's when I discovered Jessica's latest performance. She was still at the wedding, but instead of celebrating, she'd gone live on social media, crying dramatically about how I'd ruined everything. Her Instagram live stream was a masterpiece of manipulation. "She's always been like this," Jessica sobbed to her followers, mascara artfully smeared. "So jealous of my success in marketing, always trying to compete. And now she's thrown our parents out of her wedding." She painted this elaborate picture of me as this horrible person who'd never appreciated the family's love and support. The comments were flowing in. How could she do this to her own sister? "You're so strong for putting up with her." It was surreal watching Jessica spin this narrative, claiming I'd ruined the family's reputation by inviting Emily and disrespecting our parents. This was worse than any chaotic night shift I'd ever handled in the I needed someone sane to talk to, so I called Grandma Margaret. The truth emerges. To my surprise, Grandma and Emily were still together. When Grandma answered, her voice had a peaceful quality I hadn't heard in years. They'd finally had their long overdue conversation, and everything had come to light. How Mom and Dad had manipulated both of them, fabricating lies and creating misunderstandings that had torn them apart for years. "Sarah, honey," Grandma said, her voice thick with emotion. "Emily showed me all the cards and flowers she'd sent over the years, the ones your mother never gave me. They even intercepted her calls when I was in the hospital. The depth of my parents' manipulation was staggering, even to someone like me who'd seen it firsthand for years." Right there at my wedding, while Jessica was broadcasting her fake tears and Mom and Dad were causing scenes, Grandma and Emily were healing decades of manufactured hurt. They cried, hugged, and began piecing their relationship back together. It was like watching a severe trauma patient finally stabilize after hours of touch and go uncertainty. Legal action. That's it. I'm done playing nice. Just like how I advocate for my patients' rights in the It's time to stand up for myself. I'm suing Jessica for defamation over that social media stunt, and Emily is taking legal action against my parents for their years of manipulation and harassment. My parents are in full panic mode now, alternating between apologetic messages and angry accusations. But I've learned enough from treating toxic situations in the Sometimes you have to amputate to save the patient. Update: 1 week later. It's been a week since the wedding, and life has been as unpredictable as a typical Earth shift. I appreciate all the support from my colleagues and online community. To those saying I should have known better than to invite my family, listen, even as an nurse who sees trauma daily, you still hope your own family won't be the ones causing it. Linda, my mother-in-law, is understandably frustrated by all this drama, though she's handling it with the grace of a seasoned hospital administrator. Michael and Amy have been incredible, standing by me like the reliable team I've always wanted. Their support makes this whole situation more manageable, like having skilled backup during a difficult procedure. The legal proceedings are moving forward. My lawyer says we have a solid defamation case against Jessica's social media performance. Her tearful live stream wasn't just emotionally manipulative. It was potentially damaging to my professional reputation as a nurse. The evidence is clear as a patient's chart. Her deliberate attempt to damage my reputation could have serious consequences. Emily's case against our parents is equally strong. Her attorney has compiled years of evidence, text messages, emails, and letters showing their systematic manipulation. There are messages of Dad telling Grandma that Emily didn't care about her, and even instances of Mom impersonating Grandma in communications with Emily. It's like uncovering a long-running infection that's finally being treated. Court day. The court proceedings went better than any of us could have hoped. Jessica showed up playing the victim, but her act fell apart under scrutiny, like a poorly applied bandage. The judge wasn't impressed by her social media theatrics or her attempts to paint herself as the wronged party. When the ruling came down in my favor, requiring her to publicly retract her statements and pay damages, I felt the same relief as when a critical patient finally stabilizes. Emily's case against our parents was more complex, but equally successful. The evidence was overwhelming. Years of documented manipulation and gaslighting laid bare in the courtroom. Dad's composure cracked completely during the proceedings. He started yelling about ungrateful children and family loyalty, but the judge shut him down faster than a code blue response. Final update. The situation has taken an unexpected turn, like a routine case suddenly revealing deeper complications. Grandma Margaret has decided to remove Mom and Dad from her will, leaving everything to Emily and me. She's had enough of their manipulative behavior, and this is her way of making things right. Of course, my parents aren't taking this lying down. They've switched tactics and are now trying to manipulate Linda, bombarding her with messages painting me as the villain. But Linda, sharp as any experienced medical professional, saw right through their attempts. Following Emily's example, I've gotten a restraining order against my family. It's like implementing infection control protocols. Sometimes you need strong measures to prevent toxic situations from spreading. Michael and I are finally settling into married life. And despite everything, I feel lighter. It's like successfully completing a difficult procedure, challenging and draining, but ultimately rewarding. Grandma and Emily have moved in together, finding peace in their reconnection. Watching them heal their relationship reminds me of why I became a nurse. Sometimes the best medicine is simply having someone who cares stand by your side. Life feels more stable now, more genuine. Maybe this is what healing really looks like.